Hey everybody, welcome back to Northernlion, Plays the Binding of Isaac Afterbirth Plus. We're sitting here at, 7 wins in a row. Hooah! Al Pacino. You know Al Pacino? You know him? He's an actor. He goes, hooah. I can't think of a single quote that he has from that movie. The only Al Pacino, by the way, here's our seed. The only Al Pacino quote that comes to mind is from the Adam Sandler movie Jack and Jill, where he goes, "What's my name?" Dunkachino. It's a whole new game. I don't know, that actually might be a little Nicky impression, now that I think about it. Your hair smells like strawberries. I'm sorry. I'm trying to pivot off of this into some more erudite conversation. I don't want to go off on a rant here, but does anybody else feel like Valangan Farmers? Okay, you get the idea. There's no cerebralness to be had. I know why. That's not even close to Al Pacino. I know why. She had a great, and your head was all the way up it. I'm working on... If they ever remake Heat, I want to be at least considered for the Al Pacino part. I need to learn some more lines, because, I mean, it is one of my favorite movies of all time, but I will also acknowledge I don't think I've seen it for like 6 or 7 years, minimum at this point. But great movie. If you've never seen Heat, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, directed by Michael Mann. Probably, to be honest, probably my favorite of the... you know, gangster movie genre. It's played straight. It's not a parody, I'll admit. And, you know, I get that The Irishman is not really like a parody, but it's not a satire, but like perhaps an exaggeration of it to emphasize the fact that, you know, this is what would happen to the mobsters pathetically as, like, they got older. But, yeah, we don't need to go into the machinations of it. It's just very artfully crafted, well made. Well shot. Like, it looks like the 1990s is the way I would describe it. Anyway. Moving on here. We have a bone heart already. 99 bombs is fantastic. We will immediately swap and feel extremely good about it. Get red candle instead of the clicker. And we're pretty much off to the races at this point. Help me. At least we didn't lose our bone heart in the process. You might say, NL, you got Pulse Worm down there. Why wouldn't you pick up Pulse Worm? There's nothing. You don't lose anything by picking up Pulse Worm. That's where you're wrong. I'm here to tell you, okay? Pulse Worm does nothing for us. If something does nothing for you, you do lose by investing time in it. You lose the most precious resource of all. Your limited time on planet Earth, okay? And you gotta have a little bit more respect for yourself. Can't just be throwing time away. It didn't hurt. It did hurt. Because the less time you have, the more valuable you're... And this, we're getting there. We're getting somewhere. Now just do it in the Al Pacino voice. Okay. There's this little something called time inflation. This little Nicky again. It's called time inflation. You see, the less you have of something, the more valuable it gets. You're never getting more time. It's always getting more precious. So yeah, if you're investing in something and it's not paying dividends, you are losing something. You're losing the most important something out there. Your life. End scene. End scene. Security. Security, what? For what? Being the greatest improvisational actor of all time? Alright, then fine, arrest me. I'm guilty as charged, allegedly. I plead the fifth. Alright, we're not going to go into the curse room yet. Still a fantastic run. You know, we got that Tears upgrade on the last floor when I was knee deep in the bit. We got Infamy, very nice. We got another Bone Heart. 2 Bone Hearts is honestly like having probably like 5 heart containers. It might even be like having 7 heart containers. I think it's like one of those... It's a scaling factor times the variable plus 1. That's my take on it. Now this leprosy, not so much, but that's fine too. Anyway, it is a Tuesday today. Very limited recording time on Tuesday. We do a lot of streaming on Tuesday instead now. which is honestly is good. I like recording, don't get me wrong, but, you know, I mean, it speaks for itself, you know, I've done it for so long that obviously, if I didn't like it at this point, something would have been terribly wrong with me, to have been able to manifest it for so long. However, I do want to say, and it's very common for me, but I you know, post birth, I slipped into a bad habit yet again of like, hey, well, bare minimum, you gotta have an Isaac episode every day. And then Spelunky 2, I love it. Bare minimum, you gotta have some Spelunky 2 every single day. And then on top of that, like, oh, chess is going well. And then, oh, Slasher's Keep is a lot of fun. And then, like, all of a sudden, you're like, bare minimum, 4 videos every day. But sometimes you also want to fit in, you know, some kind of other, you know, like, oh, a new game just came out. I'd love to do a one-off video of it. And all of a sudden, you're at, like, 5 videos that day. Maybe most days, and it's like, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta scale back. I know this is what you're probably sick of me talking about it, and I acknowledge, I always acknowledge the luxury of being able to get away with working a little bit less, but, you know, it's also, we want, don't be mad, okay? I don't want duality. I just don't, I don't like it that much. I think it's overrated. I don't pay for access anymore, unless we, like, if we desperately needed it, maybe, but sure, worth it. Yeah, basically I need to get okay with working less. And, you know, I'm working on it, which I know is kind of counterintuitive, but and it's not really, now that I think about it, it's not really working less, it's just streaming more, which is kind of the exact opposite, but it's different, okay? Because, like, a stream is not like, I don't know, and you know, with videos, especially if you start a series, you sort of set an expectation that there's a frequency or a repeatability to the episodes, you know? Maybe not every day, but, you know, if the show is called, like, Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, then, you know, you're getting episodes roughly once a week. And if it's called The Nightly News, you know you're getting episodes once a day. And if Northernlion's doing a series on a game, you know, you're probably getting an episode either, you know, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday to Monday, if you catch my drift. So gotta be better about, like, doing less. It does sneak up on you. I saw a great infographic. Well, it's not. It was like a flow chart. It was a satirical flow chart today, and it was like this is me speaking in character of the person who made the tweet. My husband made me this handy dandy flow chart, and in the center of the flow chart is should I take on a new project? Do I have time? And then if your answer is yes, it goes to a bubble that says no, you don't. And if the answer is no, then it says don't start a new project. So you catch the drift, you know, no matter what. I mean, it's not to say you should never start a new project. I'm just saying, you know, if you got a problem with, like, ooh, new shiny thing, let's do 100 episodes on it. That maybe you'll find some relatability to the bit as well. Maybe we can all have a laugh at the meme together. Isn't that what it's all about? Memes, Robert. He had a great meme. The subreddit was all the upvotes. We're working on it. Look, it's not improv. Improv implies that there's craft. It's improvisational, which means any kind of humor that might be found there is incidental and completely by accident. I apologize. But yeah, Tuesday, you know, it's early in the morning. And, like, it's nice to be able to say that. It's nice to be able to become one of those people that's like, when it's early, I don't have to say early for me anymore. I get to be like, it's early. Oh, wow, you got up at 7? Must be... Oh, wow, you got up when your alarm clock went off? Must be nice. I got up rudely in the middle of REM sleep due to my infant child crying because they were starving. You got to play a little song to wake up? That must be nice. Oh, it's minus 40 there? Wow, are you going to wear shorts? It's minus absolute 0 here. Hey, you get the idea where we're going with this one. Have I been to the item room on this floor? A. I don't know, I said A like I'm happy with that. Did we get shielded tears at the item room here? Am I insane? Am I losing it? Does it matter? We've been to the item room. We got shielded tears. Okay. Take me out of here. Anyway, we're going down. Excited, you know, because it's Tuesday, Dan and I are playing a little bit of Gex. If you haven't watched it yet, the Golden Egg Challenge series is still in its infancy. We're still working on it, but I think it's got great potential, okay? So what is it? It's two, and I kind of package it like this. It's a little cheesy way to sort of like sell it to the audience, but it's two average or below average gamers trying to accomplish extraordinary feats. If we don't accomplish the extraordinary feat, we have to do some kind of embarrassing or unpleasant challenge. Last week, we wanted to get a win in Call of Duty Warzone. We didn't get a win in Call of Duty Warzone. We had to eat some bean-boozled jelly beans, which were disgusting. Some of them not so bad. Like, I've said this a couple of times before, but we've had, like, you know, grass. You know, there's a green jelly bean. It can be either grass, which is bad, or lime. I gotta tell you, I could taste the difference, but I was like, dude, this grass jelly bean honestly tastes not half bad. I would maybe eat them recreationally. There's another one, it was like, it could either be berry blast or it could be toothpaste. I actually sought out the toothpaste ones. Very strong minty flavor, and I enjoy the taste of mint. But I did get several barf and booger flavored ones, and I gotta admit, they did a great job in the lab on those ones. Those ones were not so tasty. This week, I think, so we're playing Fortnite again, and I think it's funny. Like, I think it's a bad business decision for us to play Fortnite. Like, the analytics are usually bad, and then there's also, like, an element of chat, of, like, you know, Tips Fedora. I don't watch Fortnite. I'm a scholar gamer. I only play Genshin Impact, you know? By the way, if that offends you, my advice is to look within. You know, it's coming from a position of me having seen comments like that and then exploring your comment history on Reddit. And they're like, I hate when they play Fortnite. It's a game designed to get money out of 12-year-olds' wallets. And then on Genshin Impact, they're posting like, what? How did you get 6 5-star pulls on a 10-pack? Anyway, look, I'm trying to delete it. Sorry. But I always like playing Fortnite, mostly because I know one day, Dan and I, and we've done it before, but like, it's rare. One day we're gonna get the dub, and it's just people are gonna go to the stratosphere. I still think like, so 2019 is 10 years ago at this point. You know what? That's a good tweet. Let me make this tweet, okay? So today's December 8th. Wanna feel old? December 8th, 2019 was 10 years ago. And I'll keep you posted on how that does. Okay, so here's the tweet. Wanna feel old? December 8th, 2019 was 10 years ago. We have 1 like. Thank you, Schmuckaroo. Thank you, Schmuckaroo, for being the first like on that tweet. I'll never forget the people that were with that tweet from the bottom, and we're riding that straight to the top. Yes, I will take the booger tears, please. But, I will also have the gabagool. Why did I laugh so hard at that? Like, I didn't laugh openly that much, but in my head I was like, good one. Nice reference to The Office. One day, Dan and I are gonna get a win. Oh, okay, so yes, the genesis of the tweet. 2019 was 10 years ago. I very much don't really remember vividly a lot of the stuff that happened in that year, as mentioned in the past few Isaac episodes. It's been kind of a big year for a variety of different reasons. Let me just put it this way. You know, if you had told me in December 2019, I would be glued to the news going, Poggy, a vaccine. I would be a little confused. I'd be like, a vaccine for what? I don't get it. Why is everyone so hyped over vaccines now? I mean, it's great news, don't get me wrong. The collective population must have gotten so much smarter if everybody's so excited about a vaccine. You get the idea. But anyway, the bit, it writes itself. One of the most hype gaming moments of 2019 is when the Star Wars stuff came to Fortnite, and then I won that duo. We won the duo game, but like, I was one-on-one in a lightsaber duel with the guy in the finals. Oh, man. And then somebody edited Duel of the Fates over top of it, which is, dude, such an assortment of not very good items. Is not fair, by the way, because Duel of the Fates makes anything sound like more dramatic. So I don't respect movies that have soundtracks, you know, because it's kind of like it's cheating to just pick like a song that summons some emotion or elicits some emotion. Why don't you just this is why I only watch silent movies. Like, I think it's kind of unfair. Like, I think it's a little bit of a hack, really, for actors to be able to use like the tone of their voice and their like inflection and stuff like that in order to be able to make the audience feel a certain way. For me, is the only kind of movie that really emotionally affects me these days is like an old-timey dude in a mustache kidnaps a nice young lady and then ties her up and puts her on the train tracks, and then like the title card comes up and it goes like, "The dastardly Dirk has done it again." But it doesn't say that. I have to say that in my head, obviously, because it's a silent movie. I don't frick around with talkies. Okay, I'm like a silent movie expert personally. Anyway, I don't know. The bit's just bizarre. You want an update on the tweet? Okay, it has 209 likes 3 minutes later. HC Justin has replied, "Now that we got the influencers involved, this thing's going straight to the moon, dude." You know what I was thinking the other day? This is a very common sort of thematic bit for me. So I apologize. You haven't heard this specifically before from me, but you've heard things in the same vein a lot. So I was thinking, you know, it's 2020. The year 1970 was 50 years ago. That's a long time, 50 years. But when I think back to 1970, you know, those are like, you know, my parents were kids. You know, it's not like it's outside of living memory. You could talk to somebody that has memories of 1970 and is still like, you know, doing a job. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody that was an adult in 1970 is, you know, not to be trusted. I don't know where I was going with that, to be honest. But, you know, there's like, you know, working adults that are probably getting pretty close to retirement, don't get me wrong, that were, you know, 10 in 1970. And they have memories of it, right? Then I was like, it's weird, because 1970 almost feels contemporaneous to me. Not to say like, oh, it could have been yesterday, but when you like look at videos or you know, historical footage from the 1970s, it doesn't feel like ancient history. But what's crazy to me is thinking of like what 1920 feels like. 1920 feels, in terms of like the sentiment, 1920 to me feels closer to like 1776 than it does to 1970. But, and here's where it all gets tied together for me, 1920 is to 1970, a 50-year difference, as 1970 is to us. Doesn't it seem like messed up, man? The idea, like, when 1970, I'm like, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad." 1920, I'm like, "Good day to you, barkeep. I've recently taken in a vaudevillian show. Have you heard of this? These two brothers in North Carolina are starting to engage in the miracle of flight. Heavier than air transport, can you believe it? And not even aboard a Zeppelin." 1970 is like I feel like if I got on a time machine and went back to 1970, people would be like, "All right, this guy talks like kind of a weirdo, but like at the same time, you know, he's just a, you know, kind of a weirdo." It's not that bad. I feel like if I went back to 1920, people would be like, "This guy, we need to kill him. Something's not." I mean, I know it's not like the witch trials, but you know what I mean? It feels different. Like there's this, and I think there's a case that it was. Like I don't think it's necessarily the null hypothesis that. I don't think it's worth it, dude. I don't think it's necessarily the null hypothesis that you know, people in 1970 felt like 1920 was as 1970 feels to people in 2020 now. I think, you know, you're not merely defined by the year that you live in. It's also, you know, the culture you live in, the technology, you know, like, has the world changed more or less between 1920 and 1970 than it did from 1970 to 1920? Or 1970 to 2020, I should say? I don't know. I feel like the world changed more between 1970 and 2020, which is weird because it also feels closer together. Maybe it's that, you know, it's one link away from my own personal connection, and as a result, it's hard to imagine. But I've been thinking about this because I listen to these audiobooks, you know, and you know, some of them, like, I've been really interested in, you know, American history for, I don't know, maybe like the last 9 or 10 months. So there, you know, I've read some, like, or listened to, I guess, some historical biographies, and like some great courses, you know, like some more sterile, sort of like just exclusively event-driven, you know, in this year this happened, in this year this happened, sort of stuff. But I've also, you know, some more, I wouldn't call it alternative history, but, you know, some history that has a bit of an editorial slant, or at least covers a different perspective. Stuff like, you know, A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, telling stories that aren't otherwise, you know, typically featured in, you know, a more general academic sort of study of history. And it dawned on me that, like, in my head, 1960 and 1980 are, like, farther apart than the founding of the United States in 1776 and the American Civil War in 1860. Like, even though those are 100 years apart and 1980 and 1960 are only 20 years apart, 1980 and 1960 feel like two different universes, and 1776 to 1863, you know, to me feels like that's the same people. Like, if you had told me, like, I would have to think about it, but if you were like, yo, you know what's crazy? John Hancock fought in the Civil War. I'd be like, whoa, that's nuts. Then when I thought about it and did the arithmetic, I would be like, he would be like 160 years old. But it wouldn't immediately strike me as being insane. But if you were like, yo, check this out. I'm trying to think of a good example. Like, did you know Madonna was in Some Like It Hot? I would be like, she would be like -4. There's no way. Anyway. I think it's because, you know, the closer you are, or the more even that you've lived through a time period, you understand the differences much more because you're there for it, right? Not just because you have a vested interest, but because, like, literally you lived through it, maybe. Like, you know, for me, 2012 has a much different vibe than 2020, which has a much different vibe than 2014, which has a much different vibe than, you know, 2009. And if you truncate it in history, although you could probably teach us an entire history course just on the world news that happened in 2020 alone in the future, you know, people might be like, oh yeah, the 2010s. Like the same way we're like, oh, 1980s, hairspray, power suits with shoulder pads, aerobics, you know, they're 2020, oh, that's right, the virus. Oh, and also shutter shades, and also YOLO, and also do the Harlem Shake, you know, it's just, history is a way of kind of flattening the depth of the experience that you're living through, which is not a bad thing, you know, I mean, you can't be expected to, like, the further back you go, the more it's obvious as well, right? Like, I think the most obvious example is that probably, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the world, but at least I say this knowing that it paints me in a negative light as well. The average North American probably could not tell, I'm being completely sincere, probably could not tell you a historical event. I hate that what I'm about to say I believe. I don't believe that the average North American can tell you of a historical event that takes place between the supposed death of Jesus Christ and Christopher Columbus, quote-unquote, discovering America. I genuinely believe that if you were to ask the average, let's say, Canadian or American adult, obviously there's going to be marked exceptions here, but I believe if you were like, hey, name something that happened, like, after Jesus died, but before Christopher Columbus landed in the United States, I bet many of them would hit you with something cheeky, like Christopher Columbus started sailing towards the United States. You might be in Europe right now, and you're like, or you might just be smart and or learned, let's say, and you'll be like, NL, the average American could tell you that the Battle of Hastings exists. I don't think so. I honestly don't think so. Don't get me wrong, I think that, you know, in terms of, like, modern history, I feel like the average... I think, like, based on the education system that we have with respect to history in North America, is actually, it does a pretty okay job of giving you, like, a generalized overview of, like, the years from the founding of your country to the present, right? Which is perhaps the most relevant history to know if you're looking for, like, you know, an actionable sort of path, you know, like... How did the world that I live in today come to pass? Well, then you know, probably more relevant that you look at the stuff that is relatively recent instead of the stuff that's kind of in the more distant past, even though that obviously has had a pretty huge influence on the way that, you know, our society is developed. That being said, my experience with historical education in high school, and I loved the history class. I was never one of those kids that was like, I don't get it. I had a great history teacher who was very passionate about the subject. But there was basically just like two histories. Canada and world history from about the age of exploration until the modern day, which at the time was 2003. Don't laugh. And then ancient histories of the world, like the civilizations that existed from Mesopotamia to Rome, more or less. Literally, like... And again, I took some optional history classes in high school. My high school didn't exactly offer a wide breadth of them, but I took the ones that were available. It's like, essentially, no study whatsoever of Asian history. Or, you know, the history of North Africa, or the, you know, the Arabian Peninsula, for example. Africa as a whole continent, I suppose. I get you got a limited time, but still. We, as North Americans, many of us have, like, I would say, some prodigious gaps. Anyway, I didn't mean for this to become, like, I didn't mean to be preachy, necessarily. I'm not like, oh, everybody should learn more history. I just find it interesting. But yeah, I bet, trying to think of if I asked, let's say I asked 10,000 people in North America who won the Battle of Hastings, I bet a third of people would know the answer. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with that. Anyway, not to get on my high horse, again, like, you know, I give off the appearance sometimes of being intelligent, but really I think I just know a lot of trivia, and also have a good memory, which kind of gives me the appearance of having some intelligence. But my critical thinking is like, you know, sometimes, I've told the story many times about, you know, I take the sandwich meat. Is it common to, like, not like any of these? I take the sandwich meat out of the fridge and the bread out of the cupboard, and then after I make the sandwich, I put the meat in the cupboard and the bread in the fridge, and then I'm like, where's my keys? And then I check the, you know, cat litter box, and I'm like, how'd they get there? You get the idea. I like many people who I think have a good knowledge of trivia, I have a bad awareness of how to practically accomplish things in my real life. The other day, I'm not going to get into the minutia of it, but essentially, you know, we have like a shared garbage room facility that, you know, people in the area use. They put their garbage in, and then it all gets taken out by... Like, let me put it this way. It's not like you put your garbage cans out at the end of the road here. Instead, you would, like, go to a room in the basement, and everybody that, you know, lives there puts their garbage into, like, a big trash compactor, and then, like, once a week a private truck comes in and takes it away, right? So, in order to get there, you gotta take an elevator. In order to get to the floor, you have to use your key, which has, like, a little RFID sort of reader on it, or emitter, I should say. So you scan it in the elevator, and then you hit the floor you want to go to, which in this case is garbage, and then you enter like a little hallway, and in order to get into the garbage room, you have to scan it again. And that's to, you know, make sure, because, you know, especially, it happens everywhere, but in Vancouver there's a lot of, you know, petty theft kind of break-ins. You know, people will break into your parking garage and smash your windows and stuff like that to steal coins out of your cup holder. I wish I was joking, but, you know, we don't have to get into the societal aspects of it, but, you know, the city has a problem with addiction for sure, which, you know, compels people to make decisions like that, you know, when you talk about somebody that's from a small town, they're like, they'll smash your window for 25 cents? You're like, yeah, it's not like they just want the 25 cents. You know, they're going through, like, some physical withdrawal symptoms that makes them act irrationally in a way that's very inconvenient and also potentially financially damaging for the people that are on the other end of the crime. Don't get me wrong. Just an issue that sucks all around. Anyway, so there's, like, more security than you might be used to. Regardless... so, you know, I was being a nice guy. I was like, oh, I'll take the garbage down. You know, I'll take it down before it gets super full. And that way, like, everybody's happy. I'm happy, wife's happy, baby's happy, cats are happy, sanitation department's happy, everybody's happy, right? Only, here's the problem. Got in the elevator, scan to go to the floor, no issue. Scan to get into the garbage room, no issue. Put my garbage in, put my recycling in, left... patted down my pockets. Oh no. Realized I had left my keys in the garbage room. Which means, not only can I not go back, you know, to my domicile, because I need a key to be able to use the elevator, but I also can't get back into the garbage room to get my key, because you need a key to get into the garbage room. So I was just standing out there, and I was like, this sucks. And then, like, on top of that, it's a pandemic, right? So, like, within anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours later, someone would eventually come down, right? And be like, I gotta use the garbage room. But then I gotta be this weirdo that's hanging out outside of the garbage room. That's like, hello, neighbor, feel free to say no, by the way, but I'd really like to get inside of the garbage room, because wouldn't you know it, I left my keys in there. I don't think that it would cause a problem, but... you know, there's also the situation, and I don't mean anything by this except, like, the operational complications this would cause for me in the situation. But, you know, not everybody that lives in our building is necessarily an English speaker. So I get, you know, they might just take their garbage down, and all of a sudden there's this guy speaking in a language they don't understand, and it's in the middle of a pandemic, but also maybe he's trying to take your glass bottles, and I'm like, please, my keys, my keys. Anyway, so I had to call my wife, who luckily was at home, which makes sense because she was looking after the baby. But she had to put the baby in the baby Bjorn Zach Galifianakis carrier and then come down and rescue me. She had to bring her keys so that we could open up the garbage room and get my keys and then get back on the elevator. And God forbid if somehow she had lost her keys between the elevator and the garbage room, I think we literally would have had to live in the parking garage. Maybe forever. I don't know how you solve the problem. That seems like a design oversight, you might be saying. No, I think it's a brain oversight. I think I should not have left my keys in the garbage room. It's my mistake. I set them down on top of one of the bins while I was, like, sorting through, because you can't put the glass in the plastic stuff, and you can't put the paper in the cardboard place in the... By the way, from a mundane domestic standpoint, nothing makes me more annoyed than going into my recycling room and seeing that there are people who have thrown... There's a couple that really annoy me. The worst is when people wrap their compost in plastic shopping bags and then throw it in the compost. Even, like, it's not a... I'm trying to think, there's a programming term for it. It's like composition and inheritance. You know, just because there's compost in the bag, that doesn't mean the bag is compostable. You might be like, NL, this seems like kind of a minor thing to complain about. Well, no, it's like, it's not. I mean, I guess like it is in some sense. Maybe compost isn't that important to you. It's not something I concern myself with on a daily basis, but like if you're going to go through the trouble of composting, why would you then wrap your compost in a non-compostable vessel when you drop it in the compost bin, thereby rendering the entirety of the compost bin non-compostable until somebody else has to fish it out for you? Like, that's like taking a shower. Like, oh, I want to get clean. Being clean is good. Don't want to smell bad for work. And then right after you finish your shower, you're like smearing poop under your armpits, right? Like you're nullifying the whole. You might as well have not done it in the first place, because you're actually, like, you don't get the credit for your good intentions if your bad actions actually, you know, completely nullify the effect of them. So that's bad. The other one that gets me is people putting their plastic containers in the bin that very clearly says glass only. Because it's just like, come on, you had one job. I know it's an old meme, you had one job, but I'm like, in a way, it's almost, I wouldn't say I respect people who just throw all their recycling in the garbage, but I at least, I'm being very careful with this, I at least respect the fact that they're not pretending, you know? They're not doing recycling theater. They're going like, look, I think this is not me talking. This is in the context of the joke. I'm a different guy. You can tell by my voice, okay? I'm not saying recycling doesn't work. I'm just saying, like, it's a lot of work and I'm not going to do it. But I understand I should be doing it. Okay. Like, I think you should do it. But at least I respect that you're not really being a hypocrite. It's the people who, like, I recycle, and then they don't actually, like, sort the recycling at all. Or even worse, they put non-recyclable things in the recycle container, and then, like, the people that come to pick up the recycling are like, yeah, we couldn't take it because there was a plastic bag in the organics, and it's not our job to sort it, it's just our job to haul it. I'm like, okay, well, honestly, like, I wish that that other person that threw the plastic bag in there had just thrown it all in the trash. Like, if you're not going to put in the minimum amount of effort to actually make sure you're, like, compliant with the recycling rules, then you're actually just inhibiting the recycling process to begin with. Anyway, for now, thanks for watching. I don't want to go off on a rant here. If you enjoyed the episode, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. See ya!